Hey, sweet guy. How are you? You miss me, don't you? I know it's only been 2 months, but don't worry. Time goes by so fast, it'll feel like I was gone for only a week. I know. I wish you were here with me to experience this whole different country I'm in. I mean, Spain is just beautiful. The architecture, the scenery, and the food here is delicious. You'll absolutely love them. Oh, that reminds me. Did you get the pictures I sent you? Yes. I took some good shots of the city so that it'll feel as though you are here with me. Hmm? Were there any weird guys? Well, some tried to flirt with me, but their tricks didn't work on me because my heart was already taken by a certain someone. Yes, you. There's no one else for me to be thinking about romantically. Hey, I know I sound like I'm having fun being in Spain, but don't forget that I'm here on business. I don't mix business with pleasure. Some people do, but not me. I assure you. You know me. I'm not the type to go partying at clubs every night or get drunk or sleep with someone else. If I decide to be with someone on a long term, then I'm committed to stay faithful till the end. If you want to cuddle, then I'd be happy to, even if it means teasing you a little bit. I'm with you because I love you and I care about you. Remember, I'm not going to abandon you or leave you for someone else here in Spain. There are nice looking guys here, but they're not you. Remember when I told you that my type of guy from the outside would have dark hair, be taller than me, and have a nice smile to give me butterflies, and be well built? Well, I'm sure women have their ideal type. Some might go for tall, dark, and handsome, but to me, you're better. Your hair is soft, and I like it that you let me play with it. Takes some convincing, but at least you don't mind. Your smile warms up my cheeks, your eyes. I could get lost in them. When the sun hits you just right, it makes my heart skip a beat, like you're glowing. Honestly, you still make me blush when you're being you. And we have fun together. Even if you're good at something I'm not, and vice versa, we still have fun together. Like video games and art, for example. And when you hold my hand, I always stare at it and compare it to mine. Why, you ask? Well, your hand is so big and gentle. Remember that I play with the lines on your hand? Hey, I'm not a palm reader, but I do it because sometimes it tickles you. I miss doing that with you. I miss seeing your face. And it sucks with the time difference. When it's night here, it's day over there. And when I'm waking up, you're sleeping. But we try to make our communication work, right? Aw, you miss my cooking, don't you? Well, I miss yours too. Hmm? You have a request? What's that? You want me to read you a story. Can I ask why? It helps you to sleep? Okay. Um, is there a particular story you want to listen to? A fairy tale? Why do you want to hear a fairy tale? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd be happy to, but a fairy tale? You just like hearing different versions of them? Yeah, they do differ from the films we've seen. Some of these fairy tales actually have a sad ending, like The Little Mermaid. And The Beauty and the Beast, that was different. And there was one I've heard that was kind of boring. I still prefer the animated version more so than the live action. So, which of the fairy tales do you want to hear about? Uh, yeah, I can do Snow White. You're like a baby, you know that? Cute baby. Yes, you are like a baby. Now, are you comfy in bed? Good. Now then, what page is that story on? Ah, here it is. Once upon a time, in the middle of winter, when the flakes of snow were falling like feathers from the sky, a queen sat at a window sewing, and the frame of the window was made of black ebony. And while she was sewing, and looking out the window at the snow, she pricked her finger with the needle, and 3 drops of blood fell upon the snow. And the red looked pretty upon the white snow, and she thought to herself, would that I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood of the window frame. Soon after that, she had a little daughter, who was as white as snow, and as red as blood, and her hair was as black as ebony, and she was therefore called Little Snow White. And when the child was born, the queen died. After a year had passed, the king took to himself another wife. She was a beautiful woman, but proud and haughty, and she could not bear that any one else should surpass her in beauty. She had a wonderful looking glass, and when she stood in front of it and looked at herself in it, and said, looking glass on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all? The looking glass answered, thou, O queen, art the fairest of all. Then she was satisfied, for she knew that the looking glass spoke the truth. But Snow White was growing up, and grew more and more beautiful, and when she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as the day, and more beautiful than the queen herself. And once when the queen asked her looking glass on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all? It answered, thou art fairer than all who are here, Lady Queen, but more beautiful still is Snow White, as I ween. Then the queen was shocked, and turned yellow and green with envy. From that hour, whenever she looked at Snow White, her heart heaved in her breast. She hated the girl so much. And envy and pride grew higher and higher in her heart like a weed, so that she had no peace day or night. She called a huntsman and said, take the child away into the forest. I will no longer have her in my sight. Kill her and bring her back her heart as a token. The huntsman obeyed and took her away. But when he had drawn his knife and was about to pierce Snow White's innocent heart, she began to weep and said, "Ah, dear huntsman, leave me my life. I will run away into the wild forest and never come home again." And as she was so beautiful, the huntsman had pity on her and said, "Run away then, you poor child. The wild beasts will soon have devoured you," thought he, and yet it seemed as if a stone had been rolled from his heart, since it was no longer needful for him to kill her. And as a young boar just came running by, he stabbed it, and cut out its heart, and took it to the queen as proof that the child was dead. The cook had to salt this, and the wicked queen ate it, and thought she had eaten the heart of Snow White. But now the poor child was all alone in the great forest, and so terrified that she looked at every leaf of every tree, and did not know what to do. Then she began to run, and ran over sharp stones and through thorns, and the wild beasts ran past her, but did her no harm. She ran as long as her feet would go, until it was almost evening. Then she saw a little cottage, and went into it to rest herself. Everything in the cottage was small, but neater and cleaner than can be told. There was a table on which was a white cover, and 7 little plates, and on each plate a little spoon. Moreover, there were 7 little knives and forks, and 7 little mugs. Against the walls stood 7 little beds, side by side, and covered with snow-white counterpanes. Little Snow White was so hungry and thirsty that she ate some vegetables and bread from each plate, and drank a drop of wine out of each mug, for she did not wish to take all from one only. Then, as she was so tired, she laid herself down on one of the little beds, but none of them suited her. One was too long, another too short, but alas, she found that the 7th one was just right. So she remained in it, said a prayer, and went to sleep. When it was quite dark, the owners of the cottage came back. There were 7 dwarfs who dug up and delved in the mountains for ore. They lit their 7 candles, and as it was now light within the cottage, they saw that some one had been there, for everything was not in the same order in which they had left it. The first one said, "Who has been sitting on my chair?" The second one, "Who has been eating off my plate?" The third, "Who has been taking some of my bread?" The fourth, "Who has been eating my vegetables?" The fifth, "Who has been using my fork?" The sixth, "Who has been cutting with my knife?" The seventh, "Who has been drinking out of my mug?" Then the first one looked round, and saw that there was a little hole on his bed, and said, "Who has been getting into my bed?" The glass answered, "Oh, Queen of all here, the fairest art thou, but the young queen is fairer by far as I trow." But then the wicked woman uttered a curse, and was so wretched, so utterly wretched, that she knew not what to do. At first she would not go to the wedding at all, but she had no peace, and must go to see the young queen. And when she went in, she knew Snow White, and she stood still with rage and fear, and could not stir. But iron slippers had already been put upon the fire, and they were brought in with tongs, and set before her. Then she was forced to put on the red-hot shoes, and dance until she dropped down dead. Hey, are you still there? Hello? Oh, looks like you're asleep now. You must have fallen asleep while I read the story. I wish I could see you right now. Good night, love. I'll see you soon.